Yes, after all these basic science presentations, you can get your pillows out and take a nap. I'm going to talk to you about what happens after you develop something and we actually start with human testing. Wrong set. So I'm at the University of Tennessee Medical Center in Knoxville while he's finding these. And run the clinical trials unit for the 700 or so physicians at the university and have done, I think right there, the very last one. Okay. And have done approaching 2,000 clinical trials over the years. So hopefully this is really geared toward practical aspects, something to think about later. And vaccine trials are different than any other kind of clinical trial. You enroll very large number of subjects very, very rapidly, and then you ask them to come back, in most cases, several times over a year or 5 years for antibody testing with no obvious benefit. And so because of the speed with which they're enrolled, because of the different populations you're looking at, and the challenges and follow-up, they're critical that you think about these trials far in advance, and that preparation is critical, and I'll give you some specifics in a second. Suffice to say that because you may enroll 10,000 subjects in 2 weeks across multiple sites, problems are amplified, and that preparation becomes even more important. And the Einstein saying, if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be research. Well, if we knew what we were doing with vaccine trials, they wouldn't be nearly as difficult as they are, because everyone is different. Even if you've done 10 flu studies, seasonal flu studies previously, there are going to be challenges and things that you didn't think about in the next one, and you don't have time to correct for them on the fly like you do in most clinical trials. One of my pet peeves is the large numbers that we ask to be enrolled very quickly. Is faster really better? Does it make any difference to you if we enroll, and that should be 10,000 subjects, in a year-long study over a week or over 4 weeks? Does it get you to market any quicker? Does it have any added value? But it has a lot of negatives. My best subjects may not be able to come in during the week that I'm planning on enrolling. We just finished a couple of hundred subjects in a vaccine study last week. And my very last, and it was in elderlies over 65, and my very last subject to enroll was an 81-year-old professor at the university that taught medical students how to take board exams. And he was busy until the very last day. And if this study had enrolled in 1 week instead of 2 weeks, he wouldn't have been able to participate. And he's just one example of maybe being in such a big hurry doesn't offer you the best study. Your staff, they're always anxious. My gosh, am I going to be able to get my 500 people in the next week? Or which of my staff people are not going to show up? Or the supplies here? All kinds of issues because of the rapidity and the large numbers that could be dramatically reduced if we made that 1 week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And the companies, the CROs, your vendors, they're not really set up for these kind of volumes. in this last study, the reason we got 2 weeks instead of 1 week was the IVRS system imploded and their whole network had a major shutdown, and it took them 2 days to get the system back up so they could start randomizing again. And they shipped the wrong drug to several of the wrong sites. So some sites had a lot of one dose level, but none of another, and had subjects randomized to all the levels. So going in a great hurry doesn't always get you your best results. And are you really set up to handle that much data? The screening forms the source was 22 pages times 10,000 subjects. How quickly can you review that data and the database and make any useful conclusions from it? And control competitive enrollment is a so much better plan, and more sponsors are doing that. You give sites 2-3 weeks to enroll a set number of subjects, and then when it's clear that someone is falling behind, then you take part of their subjects and you assign those that last week to the sites that have done well with their enrollment. You still finish on time, but you are slowing people's pace so that they stop and you get the best possible subjects and the best data. Partner selection is critical, and this is one that experience really does matter. And so you want to go with CROs or vendors that have experience doing vaccine studies and sites that have experience. Because of the resources, you just don't have any idea how many people, how much effort it's really going to take until you get in the middle of one of these. And they need to be adaptable. They need to be comfortable enough with their own systems and with low volumes that they can adapt to the changes that are necessary to get these projects done. And if you're doing a vaccine in a particular area of patients, then make sure you understand that your sites and your CROs and your vendors understand that patient population. You don't want a group of cardiologists doing an MS study. So you really want to match your expertise of your partners to the particular vaccine that you're using. And give them time for adequate preparation. Don't decide, okay, I'm going to do this study in 4 weeks, and you've got all of this to do. When you start thinking about it, alert your critical partners that you're planning this study. It's going to be 6 months away, and this is what you're going to need to get it done. And this is one area where cheap may actually cost you a whole lot more in lousy data and delays and broken systems than going with experienced partners that actually understand the true cost and can deliver. Supplies and investigational product. You know, we always just think of getting the patients in, but there's huge issues around getting enough kits for lab draws, getting enough investigational product on site in order to do these. The IWRS, IVRS systems generally are not set up to handle this kind of volume. And if you're crossing international borders, there may be significant delays both at customs and with regulatory authorities before this product is released. We remember one study where the 2 weeks was allowed for drug shipment, and it sat in customs for 3 weeks, and it took another 3.5 weeks for the FDA to release it because it sat in customs for 3 weeks. We recommend to sponsors that we're working with on early phase work that they ship through they split their shipment and send it through 2 different ports. So, for instance, New York and Philly. And that way, if one shipment gets held up, the other one's probably going to make it and get your study started, and then your straggler will ultimately get there. But if a rapid start is important, plan ahead. Assume that things are going to go wrong, because frequently they do. And once again, if you want to go really fast, you can, but it's going to cost you more than if you do an organized, well-thought-out planned study. And your enrollment limits. Don't just arbitrarily set a number. Look at the individual sites. A big site like ours with lots of experience, if we tell you we can do 400 or 500 people in 3 weeks, then we can. But if it's Mr. Jones that's only done, Dr. Jones has only done 2 vaccine studies, and one of them had 40 subjects and one had 50, maybe you don't want to give him 400 or 500 subjects to enroll in a short period of time. The volume of supplies, 400 subjects in a vaccine study equals a room almost as big as this in lab kits over the first month. So make sure there's adequate storage, that these issues have been planned for in advance. And problems with the IWRS, with lab supplies, with drug supply, all equal lost subjects. And that's time and money spent getting to that point that you get no benefit from. Recruitment plans, start early and do multiple different sources. When your sites or your CROs tell you, I want to do radio, TV, newspaper, databases, Facebook, Twitter, I want to hit them all, as well as working from a database, believe them. It was really impressive with us in this elderly vaccine study that we just completed. We sent out letters to 6,000 patients in our internal medicine practice, and that were over 65, and we got well over 100 subjects back that participated, but almost every one of them didn't participate just because we sent them the letter. They said, I got the letter from Dr. Jones, and then I saw an ad for the study, and then I saw it in the newspaper, and then I saw you on TV talking about the study, and I decided to do it. And it's the repetitiveness. The marketing people say you have to see something 9 times. Fortunately, for some of these studies, it's not that bad, but they need to see it in multiple places and not just once, and the plan needs to reflect that. Central versus local ad campaigns, whether you use an ad agency or whether you use the sites. My personal bias is if you're going with experienced sites, they've been doing this a long time. They know what reaches their audience. Take their advice, give them adequate resources to do it, and you'll have a good study. Because even with people that are in your practice, as I referenced with the letter to the medical practice, doesn't mean that they're going to come in and do the study, and you may not be seeing the best people in clinic during the 3 or 4 weeks before the study actually starts to remind them. So Recruitment is important, and not just because you have the people doesn't mean they're going to be in the trial. And then subject assistance. There's always people that once they get in, their situation changed, their car breaks, their kids move, you need to provide transportation or whatever else to help them get there. Allow some funds for that, because retention in this day of intent to treat analysis is critical, because if they don't show up, they're a failure. Just some of the different populations that timing, match your study to the season. Don't try to do a flu vaccine study in November when everyone's already been immunized. Plan ahead. In the U.S. at least, you start those studies in August and September before all the local drugstores are giving out flu shots, or the different doctor's offices. So plan your study around the season that's appropriate. Holidays. Most vaccine studies run 6 months to a year with frequent visits during the time. Make sure that you've thought about the holidays that are going to fall during your study and how you're going to work around those with your visit scheduling. Share your plans with the people that are going to help you do the study early and often. We, believe it or not, want as good a study as you do, and that the more information we have about what you're planning, the better advice we can give you and the better job we can do in helping you execute the study. So contact us early and often, and be realistic about expectations, not just of your partners, but of yourself, and what you can really deliver to them when you're setting your timelines. And don't forget about the FDA and your manufacturers and issues that come up at the last minute that cause you to quarantine drug. So plan accordingly. Visit windows. It's ridiculous to have we have a large phase 1 unit and do a lot of PK work. And we've seen studies that at 6 months have a 6-hour window for a follow-up visit. Are you out of your ever-loving gourd? So these are people, and many of the vaccine studies are in elderly. So in order to accommodate holidays, to accommodate their schedules, their families bringing them, and not have protocol deviations for out-of-window visits, the further you get from that initial visit, give us as wide a window as you can. Does it really matter at a year whether I come in at 50 weeks or 54 weeks? My antibody data is going to be the same. And it's going to dramatically reduce those protocol deviations that you have to explain to the agency. And just plan for delays, because they'll be there. Communications. Your typical contact system of site to monitor to CRO to sponsor to the medical monitor at the sponsor, and then back down the cascade won't work. You need direct communication with the project manager and with the medical monitor, because in most vaccine studies, you try to recreate a practice situation where you bring the subject in and you vaccinate them at the same day you screen them. So if someone isn't there to answer my questions on the other end of the phone, then I'm losing patients and I'm losing interest in doing your study. It's really frustrating having someone sitting there waiting for an answer, and you're standing there looking like an idiot. I'm waiting. They hadn't gotten back to me. I must not be important. And so it's really important that you have open lines of communication to people that can make an instantaneous decision, yes, no, and move on. And many of these vaccine studies will want an unblinded monitor to observe the data for the first 10 or 20 subjects before you move on. If you put something stupid like that in your protocol to begin with, then you need to be sure that you've got a monitor dedicated to most of your sites, or you tell them we're not going to be able to turn this around for you in the same day, that you need to have a very limited number of subjects. But then on the other hand, you're saying you want it done very rapidly, but you've already taken away one of my days to enroll. So if you're going to have something like that, they are a rate limiting step in your protocol. Diaries. Pretty much all vaccine studies have a diary. Did you have fever? Did you have chills? Did you have any other symptoms? Did your arm hurt? Whatever. And the one study that shall forever try to be erased from my memory did daily diaries for 6 months. It was absolutely the biggest nightmare that I have ever been involved in. And the diaries were 3 pages. So be realistic. Once you're a few days out from the initial inoculation, does it really matter if you collect that information once a week versus every day? And don't collect so much information that you're never going to use it. Collect the information about what was different. And if nothing's changed, have a little checkbox. Hey, nothing's changed. Let's move on. I'm not an idiot. I can fill out this form. So make sure that you're doing those. Electronic versus paper. Pet peeve. Everybody loves electronic because there's a signature. Everybody loves electronics except the sites and the patients. And the problems are nobody has landline phones anymore to plug these things into, so you have to get one that's cellular. Sounds like an easy solution. Do you know how many cellular networks there are in Knoxville, Tennessee? 14. Do you know if any of them have complete coverage of the whole community? And the answer is 0. So that no matter which system you pick, you are going to have holes where people have to get in their car and drive to get a signal to be able to transmit their diaries. Now, are they really going to do this? Particularly when they could have just put it on a piece of paper. Phone apps sound great, but most of your elderlies don't have smartphones. And the kids, they love it. So if you're doing a vaccine study for meningitis in 16 to 25-year-olds, put it on a phone app. But otherwise, give me paper. And then AEs, the big thing I want to say there is there's so many things that happen to these subjects over the course of the year that have a series of elicited AEs. You know they're going to have arm pain. You know they're going to have fever. You know they're going to have upper respiratory infections. And there are certain things, and if you give me those as elicited or specified AEs, I don't have to do an AE form, and I don't have to report it to you separately every time they have one. And with lab abnormalities, don't set up class 1 changes as abnormalities as an AE because they're frequently just part of it. Once again, visit windows, dropouts, really critical. Be sure that you do everything you can to keep subjects. And just because Mr. Jones missed a visit because his wife broke her leg doesn't mean that you don't want to follow him to the end of the study. As many data points as you can get will help you to have a positive study, because otherwise all those visits are negative. Phase 1s, we do a ton of those. Just be sure that the phase 1 you work with is used to doing them. Depending on the type of vaccine and the preparation, you may want some sentinel subjects. And although most of them can safely be done outpatient, there are some where an overnight stay makes sense. And once again, open communication. And problems are amplified. Enrollment strategy sets the tone for the whole study. So a reasonable period of time equals a reasonable study. Communication, experience, dialogue. Talk to your partners during protocol development, and they'll help you make a more doable study. They're on the same team. And match your plan to the population.